Um, Hello. Can you guys hear me okay? Hello. Y'all can hear me, right? Back there? Woo! All right, everybody. Wonder what happens then if I do this. Hello. Hey, you guys, we're going to start the meeting in the back there. Can everybody have a seat? Hello.
Yes, I should stand up, huh?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our first meeting of 2025. And I want to look and see if we've got more people that are joining on Zoom, because we have had some issues today. But first thing, I want to make sure everybody knows you're in the right place. This is the first meeting of the Beaches Photography Club. Welcome. And we're going to do things differently today because, hey, Roxanne. We're going to do things differently today because our speaker is a trooper. Our speaker, Joan Walker, texted Susan Hitch and I this morning and said, I fell. She's going to tell you more about this. I fell and I think I've broken my wrist. So she's such a trooper. She is still going to go ahead with us, but we're going to let her do her talk first and then get out of here and go to the emergency room. So with that said, now that everybody knows they're here, thank you. Scott is going to convert it to your presentation, and we're going to roll.
You want me to? Hi, everyone. I'm really loud. Joan Walker, sorry, this is a dog injury here. We adopted a new dog who doesn't know how to walk on a leash, and my other dog does know how to walk on a leash. And this morning, my one who does know took off. The one who doesn't know dashed in front, and as I was stepping off my front porch, and I ended up in a rose bush, and I'm pretty sure that I did a really good one on this wrist, so that's where I'm headed afterwards. But anyway, so bear with me. And I don't normally like wear sweatpants to a presentation, but I only have one hand to pull up my pants tonight, so I know it's really embarrassing. All right, so we're going to go through this, and let's see if we work. Oh, do I have the directions towards? Pressing down. Oh, there it goes. Or did you do it, or did I do it? Did you have to do it? Okay, so I'll just say next then. Okay, so a very brief background on me. My background is I have years and years and years of dog background. I grew up with my parents had a kennel of whippets, which kennel is not really correct. I mean, in the show world, we call it a kennel, but they were all house dogs. And I grew up, we obedience trained our dogs, we trialed them, we showed them, we trained them so that we did straight whippet racing back then. And my claim to fame was that I trained the #1 hound in the United States at the age of 12. and made the cover of the AKC Gazette. And if anybody trained dogs back in the 70s, that dates me, it was the old yank and yelp, we called it. It wasn't a very pleasant way to train dogs, but because when we showed dogs, we trained them to stand in place and to look at you and put their ears up and be pretty with little bits of hot dog. I trained my dog in obedience with hot dogs, and I did not ever do the yank and yelp. And so I think our lowest score together was a 198.5, if anybody does obedience. So we did pretty well. So then I became known as like I knew what I was doing, which was questionable. So I was getting asked to write articles on dog training, dog breeds, dog showing, that kind of thing. So my first nationally published images and articles came out in 1990, and it pretty much was specialized. I wrote a lot of different things at the time. My degrees were in journalism and also in creative writing, so I wrote a lot, but the transition with the photography came really because they would send me out with photographers, and that was back in the day when you got sent places and they sent a photographer with you and you traveled all over. And the photographer had no interest in listening to me about what the article was going to be on and what shots I thought we should get to illustrate what the article was about. And so it was very frustrating to me. And my editors came in, because a lot of times they were buying art photos from me anyway, and said, hey, can you go ahead and shoot that for us? Because I could train dogs to make it look like what we were trying to say, because as we all know, you only need 250th of a second, and you can make it look. So it was all smoke and mirrors, and so that's why I got a ton of editorial work, and I was actually the top photographer for Barron's when Barron's was doing a lot of books. And so I pretty much made the shift from writing over to the photography, editorial-wise, because it paid a lot better, too. Written books, they are not self-published. It's a matter of pride for me to say that. Those are all from mid-tier and top-tier publishers. They're all on dogs, dog training, dog breeds, those kind of things. And then I also photographed for I don't know how many different books too. So kind of there was a point though where the publishers started going over to stock photography instead of hiring dog-specific photographers to photograph exactly what they wanted. And so then at that point, it was not as lucrative to be an editorial photographer for what I was doing. And so I started to make the shift into having kind of a studio. And in the beginning, like everybody, like most people, I did everything. But really, my pet photography was what I loved to do. So we made the shift exclusively to pet photography. I guess it says there 3 years ago, but it seems like it's been a little bit longer. And now we recently expanded. We have associate photographers. It's my daughter, who's been with us forever, photographing stuff, and my son-in-law, and now they're doing the Urban Paws and Pals, which is more historic St. Augustine, San Marco, those kind of things in different cities. And that's basically anything I really don't want to do, like sunsets, because we're sunrise people. So anyway, so that's brief history. Next, click. Yeah. Oh, okay. I know because okay. All right, so I know typically photographers will show you a video of their work, and this is my work video, which is how I feel that pet photography really is. So we can go to the next slide. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So, yeah, so it never goes. I mean, that's pretty much standard, is like we have things going south the whole time during our sessions, but we, you know, we know enough that keep working and we get patient, we're patient, and we end up getting it. But just don't ever think if you're out on a session and things start going south, that's actually how it goes. So it's okay. You'll get it. So what we're going to cover here is, I thought y'all would probably like to know what's in the gear bag. Very important to me is knowing dog behavior. And then also what I've done is I've gone through 3 of our most popular types of sessions. And you'll see in every single image there's our camera settings. So, because I know that everybody likes to know those. So those will be up. And I've got tips and tricks to go through it. At the very end, I've got some very basic as far as how I process my images. My goal in everything I shoot is to get it so right in camera that I'm only having to remove the leash and remove the person. That's the goal. That doesn't always happen. Which is why I say, well, I got so good in Photoshop, because I had to fix things. So what's in the bag? The gear bag. So what we shoot with Nikons, and so we're using, yes. So we have the 2 Z9s that I shoot, and I'm usually alternating between those 2 Z9s the entire session. I'll usually, because of where we are, a lot of times we're out on the beach, and I don't want to change my lenses out on the beach. So I'll have the 2 lenses, primary lenses that I think I'm going to be using. And then if I have to change the lens, it's very guarded, and we do that. I do have a backup, that's the Z8. I love the Z8. Now the Z8, I use exclusively, we've now started doing underwater dog photography, and it fits in my Audix bag better than me trying to struggle to get my Z9 in there. So I do use the Z8 for that. The lenses, you know, it's your standard, it's your trifecta, at 1424, the 24-70, 7200. I do have an 85 that I love to use, sometimes, depending. And then I also have a 100-400. There's some places that I've had to pull that 400 out just because of where I wanted to put the dog in the setting. I was so far back, I had to use that 400 to get into where I wanted the dog in the image. Strobes, we use per photos. We're kind of a little bit of a mix right now. You know, we have the B10X Plus and the B10Xs. Of course, the pluses are the newer ones. I think we have 3 10X Pluses now. They do not do well in salt water. Yeah, that was a write-off. So yeah, so hang on to those. Even when there's no wind, a puff can send it in there. Modifiers, you know, it kind of varies. We have the whole range, just like everybody else, because we all shoot in studio too. Depending on the dog and the size, I mean, I'll go anywhere from a beauty dish, if it's a really tiny dog, because then that's a fairly large modifier for that dog, to if I know I'm shooting families with the dog, I'll get the biggest modifier I can handle in that location with the wind conditions, because it's just prettier light. And when I'm talking about that outside, we're using that for fill. So because I like to rim light, I like to have sunsets and sunrises behind. I'm not afraid to shoot at ISO 5000, but I'm not going to be pulling shadows up with an ISO 5000. I'm putting light on so that I don't have to pull any shadows. I'll go into more. So light stands, you know, we use Manfrottos. Studio, we use a smaller one because of just the placement of the dog. I do use a color checker in studio. I don't use it as much outdoors anymore because I just feel like, dang, those Nikons nail that white balance so well for me. And as long as I have a gray card or something out there, I can pretty much dial it into where I want it to be. Miscellaneous, you know, the typical lens wipes, blower, batteries, etc. We have our main gear bag. We have our backpacks. If we're going on the beach and we have to go up and down steps to get over the dunes, then we're backpacking it. If we don't have to use steps, then we've got a roll cart with big puffy tires. And we have a different cart that we use, like in the Arboretum, where we have a paved path, you know, so, because I tend to carry way more gear than I probably need, but I always, you know, you see that one spot and you're like, oh, I need my 1424, you know, well, I got it. It's right there. So, I guess next. So what other stuff we have in there? So we have noisemakers. I typically will wear it, or Randy will wear it. Randy's my #1 assistant here. He's my portable light stand, right? Yeah. So we have all kinds of, I use like a duck call lanyard around my neck, and I have all these different duck calls. I have a moose call. I have whatever I think I've attached on there that maybe the dog hasn't heard before. I have on my phone, I have apps, those free apps for like squeaky balls, doorbells. What I really need to do is just do an audio recording of, you know, our front door, because I think everybody has a Ring doorbell, so it's like the dogs go. We have treats. We have sighthounds. Well, sometimes they could care less about sounds. They're more visual. So if I know I'm photographing a sighthound like a whippet or a borzoi or something like that, and they're more sight triggered, I'll get something that looks like a foxtail or something, and then you whip it out of your jacket, and they take a look, and they'll jump on you too. But at least you get that split second where they look at you. We also bring peanut butter cups. We make sure that the kind that they don't have xylitol in them. And those are sometimes like, sometimes if you got a dog that's very nervous, or it's hot outside, it's Florida, and you're trying to get, you know, the pet parent wants a picture of them with their mouth closed. So sometimes you can get like a little bit of peanut butter and just put it, have the owner, not you, put a little bit of peanut butter up on the roof of their mouth and fire off a series, and you usually can get them with them, at least one with their mouth closed. We bring, of course, leashes. We bring a recall line. Does anybody do obedience with their dogs? Are you used to? Okay, so you know what a recall line is. So we'll actually get sometimes the longer ones. It's, no matter how many times a person tells me their dog has a very good recall and always comes to hand, I can pretty much guarantee you that that dog's not going to come to hand when we're doing our photography. And a lot of places you have to be on leash, so we will put them on the recall line, and then they can do as many recalls and runs as we want, and we never have to worry about the dog going anywhere. And then sometimes we tell people, so we photograph on leash with a collar. I tell people to get a beautiful collar for their dog and bring that, because it's going to show. We don't remove the harnesses, but the leashes the collars are on. And most clients are really good about getting a beautiful collar for their dog, but there's always that one, I forgot. So we have a couple different sizes, and they're just really pretty. We tend to favor it's a collar, it's called a martingale. So it doesn't just clasp, it actually will tighten and loosen. It looks like a normal collar, but in the back it's got a triangle of fabric, so that it will, if the dog decides it wants to pop out of its collar, it can't. It will tighten enough that they can't back out of it. So we just use those. So then the other thing, it's really big, really, really big for me, if you're going to be photographing dogs, is to understand dog behavior. If you don't understand dog behavior, it can be very difficult. I have seen pictures, photographs from people photographing pets, and I can see it right away that the dog is stressed. Now, a lot of people may not understand why they don't like that photo as much as they might like a different one, but there's certain body language there that it's not appealing. And the owner is not going to buy that photo because they may not understand what it is either, but they know that doesn't look like my dog. And it's because the dog is stressed. So I'll go on. So pretty much everybody understands a friendly dog. I should have brought a golden retriever today because they're pretty classic. You know, it's that happy dog, the tail is just loose and wagging. It's got that beautiful loose body behavior. They don't know a stranger in the world. And, you know, they'll take treats. They're not overstimulated by anything. It's just like they're having a great day. Everybody's their friend. That's the goal of how you want your dog, the dog you're photographing. That's the behavior you want them to have. A lot of times when you start photographing, you'll get some warning signals. A lot of people don't recognize these as warning signals, but you've got to really pay attention to this. So it's, you know, I've got the list here, but it's the lip licking, yawning. No, they're not tired. That means they're stressed. A full body shake. You know, our little rescue will do that. I mean, she's still learning the ropes and everything, and I know she's stressed and she'll do that full body shake. Flattened ears, side eye, panting. Now, that's hard to tell in Florida because dogs pant here, but it's a different type. It's a little faster. It's not appropriate for the situation. Like you wouldn't be expecting the dog to be panting. Tucked tail, that's fairly obvious, except when you're working with sight hounds. They will curve their tail in. That doesn't mean that they're stressed, but if they tuck it in and it's curved, then it is. So, like a lot of times, you know, if you're working with sight hounds, they may or may not be stressed. The owner will be able to know a little bit better, but it's just a beautiful little, like an S shape, and that's okay. But again, like if it tucks up, they're scared. Refusing treats. Now, a lot of dogs won't take, probably are familiar with it, you know, if you have a dog that they may not take a treat in a strange location. Well, that's stress. So, or it could be, you know, some of my dogs are a little bit, you know, and they may not just like what treat you gave them. Rolling over, submissive peeing. So those are kind of yellow. And if you see a dog in a yellow, you want to get them back in the green. And I think I've got another slide here to talk about that. You can go ahead and do the next one. So what you don't want to do is slide into these red behaviors. You get into this zone, you really need to reschedule your session. Obviously, aggression. And sometimes people don't understand, you know, they'll see the stiffness, there's a stiffness to the dog. But I have seen people say, oh, they're friendly, they're wagging their tail. It's a different wag. It's kind of a stiff. It's not like, again, think back to golden retrievers, how they've got that big old tail that goes just loose and beautiful like that. And then if you've got this stiff, erratic, you want them to come out of that. Or the intense staring. That's never good. If you have a dog just doing that with you, you've got a couple seconds maybe to figure out how to back out of that situation and calm the dog down. And then there's fear. I mean, if a dog spirals into those fear behaviors, again, you're not going to be able to get anything great with this dog. And so, you know, you want to be at those yellow behavior. If you get a yellow behavior, you want to know how to go back into a green. I think I got that I might have that on my next slide. Yes, I do. So, if you start seeing these yellow behaviors, one, stop what you're doing. Put down your deer. A lot of times it's the dog is not too sure about that big old lens, you know, or something. They've never had that before. They've had a lot of little cell phones, but they may not have had really commercial, you know, big professional commercial gear. Give the dog distance. Like a lot of times when I'm talking to owners beforehand, and they'll say, hey, my dog's a little bit reserved, you know, around other people, then I automatically start with the 7200 so that I can have distance from that dog and wait until they start to show me that they're comfortable with me, and then I might be able to switch into a lens that's a little bit closer. But especially with my shy guys or a little nervous, I want to start with a distance away from them. Yeah, show your face. So live view has been a godsend. Now, live view before, I didn't really ever trust to get my focus really well on my Nikons. Then the Z9 came out, and eye focus with the constant, it just locks right in. It's gorgeous. I've had no issues with it. So what that enables me to do is actually to hold the camera down and the dog can see my face. It's made a huge difference because when you put that big old lens and that camera in front of your face, it's kind of like putting a mask on. So if you have a dog that's a little bit shyer or not so certain about things that are going on, with the cameras in your face, that can be an issue. I also, when we first introduced to a dog too, and if you see these yellow behaviors, don't make eye contact. And I think we have the introduction page here later, but when I'm first meeting a dog, we don't make eye contact. I don't try to pet the dog. I basically ignore the dog completely. If the dog wants to come and say hello to me, great. If they don't, leave them be. That's fine. They can make their own approach. But if you force an approach on them, now you're going from yellow to maybe fearful or red. So, and one of the ways too is if you find yourself you're wanting to make eye contact with the dog, focus on making eye contact on their ear. Don't look them in the eye, but look at the ear. That's enough. It's just enough off to the side that the dog can kind of start to relax. Again, approach to you. If you want to work on making friends with them, toss them a few treats. See if just keep things calm. Build your rapport back with that dog. Again, we talked about the longer lens. On a rare occasion, I've had a dog that is afraid of a strobe. I think I've had it happen twice. And then you have to know your natural light. So now you have to change a little bit on how you're photographing. And then in the studio, we would use constant light for those. And I hate using constant light on dogs because they move. And of course, constant light doesn't stop motion. You're shooting already in the studio, like at f9 or more, to make sure you got nose to eye and focus. And so I hate that, but it's workable. And then noises. Keep noises soft. If the dog is in the yellow zone, try to get him back into the green. So I always say the best way to learn dog behavior is to train a dog. Take them to a class. Teach them how to do things. Start to look and observe what the behaviors mean, of your own dog. Because the thing is, too, is if you know how to train some very basic, simple things, you can help the owner who's coming to you with their dog to help them get the dog in a nice sit. You understand enough about how to do the sit and how to do it one step away or how to come back. You can do things to help them with their dog. So that's one of the very, very best ways. Other ways, too, is to study charts. There are charts that show animal behavior and books. I've got some, I'm kind of a dog behavior nerd, so I'm constantly reading up on the latest things and watching videos and things like that. I think the next one I have, next slide I have, yeah. So this is what I'm talking about with dog behavior. And that's one of my favorite little books. The illustrations are great in it. And it really does kind of go through all the different behaviors. So that's a good one to have too. And there's another one, fear and anxiety. Those are the real big ones to know when you see them. Know it when you see it. Okay, so I'll run through this. So you go to the next slide. We do pre-session consultations. We do a Zoom call prior to every, we call it creative consultation, yeah. It's, and that's where I learn about the dog, what kinds of things they want. Are they reactive to anything? Is it, men in hats? Is it sunglasses? What kinds of things can they tell me about the dog that kind of prepares me to help them with the session? And it also can be where we go. Because if they want a woodlands shoot, okay, that's great, but you know how some areas are busier with dogs than others. Or if it's people that they're concerned about, there's some areas that have more people walking by. There's some parks we can go to that is more remote. We can go back on trail. So that helps me understand a little bit better about where we're going and how we're going to do this. I need to know what motivates them. Is it treats? Is it squeakies? Is it balls? Is it toys? You know, what can I do to get their attention towards the camera? Is it a person? Because if it's their mom, then I make sure that the dad comes too, so that mom can stand behind me. That dog's always looking at mom, but it's looking at the camera. We also need to know if there's triggers. And triggers, some people think of as in a negative way, and it can be. You know, a dog can get triggered by something and have an aggressive response, or more often it's what will take their focus away from the shoot. Bird dogs and birds. That can be one. We had a pit. It was a new rescue, and it was a group of them, and he'd only been with the family, I think, just a couple weeks. And so one of the things he told me was that he loved squeakies. So I'm like, okay, squeakies, get his attention, no problem. So my man who holds the squeaky, so we're trying to get the dog's attention, and he squeaks, and yeah, that pit loved the squeaky. He jumped midair. I see it like in slow motion coming towards Randy's hand that is holding the squeaky and chomps down on the hand with the squeaky. The dog learned that if you chew on the hand, it doesn't squeak anymore. So, yeah, he sacrifices himself. But we got some nice shots as the dog was airborne. But anyway, so you kind of want to know as much as you can beforehand. Next slide. So we send a welcome packet to everybody once they've booked. They get a welcome packet that has all kinds of information in it. And then we do the email automation, 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days, 1 day. Usually people are pretty good about not having any issues. The only time we've had a no-show was someone who had won like a silent auction or had been gifted it to them, so it had no value to them, and then they didn't show for a sunrise session, which happened to be after we'd been at the emergency vet with a dog until 3 in the morning, and there was no show, and then they ghosted me and blocked me. So, but I've learned, the day before we always text also just to confirm with everybody, everything's good, weather's good, we're good to go. So this is so I just put up here kind of what we write people. It's fairly generic. They know it's going to be coming in generically, but we try to give them information. The 2 weeks before, we always give them an email, and then I think the next slide shows the maps that I made them to show them exactly where to go to park. So if you're ever out at sunrise, we're often over at parked at the Lemon Street entrance. Again, this is another thing. Now this is just 1 week before. Let's go to the next one. 3 days. Yep, 1 day. So, and the only time I had an interesting client recently. Randy knows what I'm talking about. So, sunrise sessions you have to have some sun. We kind of cut it off at 10 knot steady winds, 15 gusts. Beyond that, it gets uncomfortable for everybody. And we had a session scheduled the day after the first hurricane came through here last summer. And so I called 2 days prior to the hurricane, said, hey, the wind's going to be too much. We need to reschedule. and I got chewed out and cussed out and sworn out because she wanted to have her session, basically during the tail end of a hurricane. I should have been a clue to me. It went downhill from there. Okay, so now we'll go to the greetings. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. So when the dog comes, and when we are starting off the session, for the most part, I just ignore them. If the dog is friendly and wants to say hello, I make sure that I have my hand open, like this, and I usually have a treat in it. I never reach over, because there are some dogs that just can't handle that. That's, scary. That is not. But even this can be too much for dogs, so only if they're coming up to say hello. Otherwise, we totally ignore them. All right, so very basic settings here. Go ahead to the next one. I use back button focus. I use 3D focus tracking, and I use animal eye, and that's the Nikon system. I know Canon has, that you guys understand that. I know Sony, again, everybody, it's similar. But the back button focus is my thumb's on there constantly because dogs move. It's not like a family where everybody is like that. The dog may sit there like this, but then their head's going, like that. So even an inch or two, half inch, makes a huge difference on whether you've got the focus or not. So aperture. I always want to separate my subject from the background, and I love beautiful, beautiful bokeh. But I also want the nose to eye in focus. And at a minimum, I want the eyes in focus. Every once in a while, things happen a little too fast and that nose may not be in perfect focus, and I can live with that. It hurts me, but I can live with it if I have to, if everything else is perfect. But my goal is to get nose to eye, and bonus if the ears are in respectable focus. So, and that depends on the lens, that depends on your distance, that depends on the aperture. So we're always juggling all those things, but that's the goal. And then, of course, with long nose breeds, German Shepherd dogs, whippets, anything with a long nose, that always takes a little more juggling. Brachycephalic breeds, pugs, Shih Tzus, bulldogs, a little easier, actually. But then again, they have their own set of problems when it gets warm. And I do have an app, it's called Set My Camera, that, you can, if you're unfamiliar with what your depth of field might be from what your distance is, you can, take a quick look on there, and it'll give you a good guesstimate. Shutter speed. I am, for most photos that are not action, I'm at 1/200th or 1/250th. Though we can, we'll go into more of that later. We do high-speed sync. I have it set so we can jump up to 1/500th, 1/600th, whatever. But I'm also trying to keep my fill light as little as possible because I really want to get those. The goal outside is to really get those natural highlights, catch lights in the eyes, and then the little thing that you add is not as obvious. It looks more natural. Action depends on how fast that dog is. Anywhere from 1,000th to 1/4000th of a second. ISO. Now here I say as high as 6,500 because that one actually is 6,400. I like to try to keep it at about 5,000. Now with the gear that I have, if my exposure is spot on, and I'm not trying to lift shadows, I have no problems with that. It looks beautiful. It prints beautifully. But if you underexpose at 1/5000th and you're trying to lift shadows, now you're going to be bringing in noise. You're going to be bringing in a lot of things, and then you got to do a lot more work. And I don't like work. So Not that I'm lazy, but I try to just get it right. I'm trying to see if I'm seeing anything else. Yes, and then you'll see a lot of this with our sunrises because it's dark out there 20 minutes before sunrise, but the colors are amazing. So we want to capture those colors, and so, and then we'll put that light on front, but we'll talk more about that. Studio, I try to keep diet so low because it doesn't need to be higher unless the dog is sensitive to the sound of your strobes going off. And if I need it to be I need that rim light, like I needed it on that Doberman, and she kept hearing so I kept, changing things around, and I swear to you, it was just a little, but that was enough for her to just whip around and go, what is that? So some dogs are more sensitive, and so sometimes you do have to raise your eyes, so even if it's in a studio situation. Dog eyes, so when it's low light like that out and it's dark, their pupils are huge. And same with, like a studio, if you've got all your lights off, they are huge. So in studio, I try to keep a modeling light on so that those pupils shrink up. Because huge pupils in dogs indicate stress. And so you may not, the owner may not understand why they don't think that looks like their dog, but it could be because the pupils are really huge and the dog is stressed. So I try to keep a modeling light on if I can, but sometimes it's not feasible. But anyway, be cognizant of that big pupils equals stress. So, and then if you have big pupils and you got an old dog, you're going to get reflection, which does not look good. So that's another reason, and that dog I didn't have any kind of modeling light on him, so his pupils were huge and they reflected gold, and I had to clear that on all my imagery. It's not impossible, it's just, again, more time. And your time is money and family and, I don't know, all those other things. So you try not to do that. Okay, so we're setting up the shots for our sessions. The next one. On leash tip, this is the Doberman I was talking about. So she's got a show leash on right there. What should have been, it needs to be up behind the ears so that you don't see it. You want the people, when they're holding the leash, to hold the leash up straight. You don't want any big loops because you're having to remove all that in post. And then you want to be aware of where the leash might make a shadow. So depending on where you have your direction, your light, if it's hitting the leash, it's going to put a shadow on the dog. So you may need to have that leash on the other side or the person on the other side. We always carry a leash with us. We carry several leashes, actually. And I think my next photo shows, yes, here's all the wrong things with leashes. So, the one leash is across the body. The other one is kind of in the fat part of his neck, which, yes, you can remove that. You can spend 15, 20 minutes of your life working on that, or you can get the person to put the leash right underneath the jawline and keep it a little bit loose. And of course, the puppy needs a leash. She was headed back to the parking lot at that moment. Yep, there she goes. She's a very sweet girl, though. So, and then same with the owner. So when you're positioning them, you want to be cognizant of where your ambient light is, where your fill light is, and where that person is standing. So, I don't know how many times you can get the perfect shot, and as you're setting up, something perfect happened, and the person was standing with the sun's coming up, they're there, and that shadow comes across the dog. So just make sure you've got them on the other side, and then you've got any fill light so that the owner's not putting a shadow on. So generative fill and generative expand have been amazing in Photoshop. So, because it used to be, with every single shot I was taking, anytime we set up, I would take a clean shot, so without the dog in it, so that I could fill in where the person was standing, where the leash was if I needed to, because content-aware fill at that time would sometimes do strange things. Generative fill does some strange things, and I really need to add that to my presentation because I've had it replace the owner with a troll. I've had it replace, oh gosh, it was a troll. It was this thing with really scary teeth. We are in dog photography often. How do I put this politely? Little boy puppies can get very excited. And they have, this is called a lipstick. So you have to loop that and remove that. And generative fill often will do a good job, but when it initially came out at first, it kept putting a snow monkey there. That was a cute snow monkey, but it was not appropriate either. So we used to have to do those. If you're using Photoshop and you've got generative fill and expand, it normally will do a great job. And I talk a little bit at the very end on, if it's not working, some other things that we can do. But positioning your owner so that you're not having to clean up shadows on the dog and you're not having to clean up leash shadows on the dog goes a long way. So this is just an example. She was in a good place. I could use generative fill to get her out and to get out the leash. It was not a problem. Light modifiers. I think we talked a little bit about this. I use the largest modifier I can because it just is prettier light. And then we don't have to be quite as close to the dog with it if we have a bigger modifier. The way we position the modifier is it's the same as with people. I want the light from the modifier to be in that upper third of that eye. And so to do that with dogs, you have to watch the curve of your modifier, and as it's coming around, you have to just imagine where is that light going. And the bottom part of that scoop, you want to be right about chin height on the dog. And that usually works out really nicely. Because you don't want to light the front. And we'll talk more the ground. You don't want your modifier lighting up the ground. Which we'll talk about there. Because if the dog is being backlit, they have shadows coming in front of them. So if the sunrise is behind them, they should have their shadow coming in front. But if you light up the sand, like on the beach in front of them, you no longer have a shadow in front, you have a shadow in back. Now sometimes it's almost impossible, and I'll show you some of these. I don't do it right all the time because I'm quick trying to get something because the dog is perfect, and maybe the dog's not been really, really perfect the whole time, or it's a really short dog like a basset hound, and you don't have a whole lot of margin for error as far as lighting up that front. So I always say just try to do it. It's not always possible. Oh, and I just said rain. Yeah, wind. Wind. It's just not fun. And we're shooting at sunrise at dawn, which is usually the least amount of wind for the entire day. So we're pretty lucky at that point. But it can get windy out there. And we look at the direction. I've got all kinds of apps to look at where's my wind coming from. Is it coming off the water in January? And it's 15 knots, no, we're not doing it. But if it's coming from the west and I've got the dunes to break it, we might try that. Depends on the dog, depends on what we're planning on doing that time. Rain, no, we don't. I mean, it's rain. It's not, no, we just don't do it. Yeah, so but finding it and knowing it and predicting it, and Randy knows that I'm pretty anal about looking at all these different programs to figure out, because you don't want to cancel a session if you don't have to. But then again, if it's raining, it's there's no sunrise, or it's really wet, if you're in a woodland situation. So yeah. Heat and humidity, that's something that we kind of live with here. We try to do things early in the morning, keep it as cool as possible and get the prettiest light. Oh, humidity. So, I'll tell a story on myself. I've always been really good about making sure that my gear acclimates to the humidity. I have it, we'll put it in the garage the night before, we'll put it out in the truck. When we take our gear out, it'll be out there. We drive with no air conditioning. You know, we're very, very careful about this. Well, I had a client in Naples. It was, what was it, like 90% humidity that day? It was, you're just dripping. And my gear hadn't been out for enough hours. And that was a no-go. I mean, you know, once humidity hits your lens and you're like, oh, snap. So that had to be rescheduled. That's happened once, and I guarantee you do that once, you'll never do it again. You'll sit out in the truck with your gear the night before if you have to, sweating with it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, and tides, I have apps for the tides and the sunrise, sunset. When we're shooting our sunrises, we do it at low tide. So that we have the most amount of beach to work on, the most level amount of beach. If you get a higher tide, now you've got that slope down. So I shoot low, low, low. I can't get that low. I'm already higher up than the dog. So that changes my whole angle, and there's not enough room for people to walk by you without walking in, you know, in your shot. So we schedule ours at low tide. I will sometimes, like I said, I'll sometimes let it go be like 2 feet above if it's going out, not if it's coming in. Because remember, pro photos don't do well in salt water. Our start times. We start sunrises, we get out there about 30 minutes before. We'll start shooting, depending on the cloud. If there's a heavy marine layer, then we might start shooting a little closer to sunrise. If it's a clear morning, we're shooting right away because there's so much light out there. So we just kind of be prepared for everything. Sunsets, we start about 45 minutes before so that we can get some action shots and some, I call them big blue sky shots, and then we work until we have that sunset. And then we're probably about 15 minutes after the sun is down is when we're finished. Oh, there's us shooting stuff. Okay, excellent. Okay. So camera position, I am low, low, low. Before I could use the live view, I was in the dirt, on my stomach, propped up through the viewfinder on the ground. I was dirty all the time. All the time. You know, I thought it was a big deal if I could sit up and take a picture because that was like a Great Dane or something, you know. But for most dogs, I was on the ground, or sometimes I was even trying to find places where I could get a little lower than the ground so then my camera, you know, because when you're trying to shoot and you're flat on your stomach, your camera's still up a little bit. So if you could like dig a little hole in the sand, oh, it was miserable. Oh, I did it, you know, but now it's like I'm so spoiled because I can use that live view and I can sit up. But I still, my camera's way down. Bigger dogs, you can sometimes use the viewfinder depending on what you're doing, but it's still fairly low. Because you think about it, you know, when you're photographing people, you're not photographing them at eye level, you're photographing them, you know, your lens is about at chest height. Well, when you're with a dog now, you're lower than them. And when you get Yorkies on the beach, you're in the sand. So these are the sessions that we do. We do studio. We have a very small studio that we have, and we live in St. John's. We have a very small private studio there. But we also do a concierge service where we bring the studio to our clients, and we'll do that in their home. We do Sunrise Beach. We do Woodlands. Sunset Beach is Sunset, shouldn't say beach, it's really river, but you know, there are beaches on the river. And then we also do our urban sessions. We've added underwater. I don't go into that in this because that's a whole nother, you know, shooting underwater and the gear that you use and how you shoot that and how you process it is completely different. And then we do destinations, so which is a lot of fun. So these are the sessions that we're going to talk about. First one, studio. Our setup is we have a table that Randy modified so that we put the dog up on the table. I put white vinyl on it so that the dog, when I have my light, is usually in front and over. We get some reflection coming off the white. If you've ever, because dogs are so close to whatever surface they're sitting on or lying down on. If you're shooting on like a hot pink, it's all in their coat. And then you have to remove that. It comes up in their shadows. So you'll have hot pink in the shadows. And it's a pain in the neck to remove. So for those kind of bright colors and things, I will always put them on white. And then in Photoshop, I will put that color and make it look like we had a sweep in that color. Typically shoot with 2 rim lights. You can see it a little bit on this little Cavalier, just for separation from the background. Often we'll put a silver reflector also in front if that white vinyl is not giving me enough. I shoot with 1 main, 2 rims, and I do try to keep the modeling light on. This puppy had the modeling light on, but he was very excited, and so you can see he's got big pupils. So he's gorgeous, but he does still have some pretty big pupils. And that was an example to that last one where he was on white vinyl, but I put the green underneath him. So I do that in Photoshop. And yeah, backdrop. So now if you're using a sweep or floor, I tell people, go ahead and take a clean shot of it because that dog's going to shed and you're going to get cookies on it and you're going to get dog hair on it and all those kind of things. And if you have a clean shot of that floor, then you can layer that in Photoshop, you know, auto align it, and then just sweep out all that hair and biscuits so you're not having to go in there in Photoshop and removing every single little bit. And they also make creases. No matter how well you tape it down and whatever you got it stuck on, as they move around, they will make creases in the floor. And if you shoot ahead of time, and I'm talking fabric, because a lot of times we do the sweep with the fabric and we put it on top of the rubber. And then my other thing, like I talked about, was I will always shoot the backdrop if it's not a sweep. I will shoot the backdrop without the dog in front of it so that I can make a floor. And if anybody wants to know how to do that, just text me or email me, and I've got like a thing on how to do that in Photoshop. These are just some more settings. We do a lot of photography for the Humane Society, and that was one of their adoptable dogs, sweet. And they move a lot, you know, because they're not trained at all. More studio, we do a lot of white. White is very popular. We do black dogs on black. I love that. More, and you can see the rim, you know, where we get a little separation there. There's some more. Let me see my settings. You know, to get that, like the dog on the right, to get the nose to ears in focus, that was at 13. So. Didn't realize my black dog was in there twice. But. Okay, so Sunrise Beach. A lot of you shoot on the beach, I imagine. Yeah. So, like we said, we go pre-dawn. And it's like anything else. You expose for the brightest part. That's your skies. So I'm exposed for my skies, and then I tell my strobe, figure out how much light I need. And it usually does a pretty good job. But like, for example, with a black dog, you might need to lock it in and then give it another half stop or something, because that black coat, for lack of a better term, it kind of eats up a lot of light. It's a little bit harder to light. A white dog, you might want to dial it down a little bit. We shoot at low tide, worry the pupil size, and then constantly aware of when you're shooting out there, how many times the colors shift, you know, what directions you are. So we're always looking, you know, ocean, north. I have no idea which directions I'm pointing right now, but anyway, wherever north is, and then, you know, back over the dunes, because that can be pink and purple and just amazing colors there. So this is, you know, and when you get that low tide and you got that, we try to always get reflections, you know, and that's just a little bit of wet sand. It's not, he's really not standing in water. That you get all that reflection off that wet sand. And that was a wide angle shot. Yep. Now, and this imposed now with generative AI fill, I would clean up all the deep paw prints in the sand. Same session, different, you know, one's heading out east, the one on the left, and the one on the north. I shifted around, and that was more towards, the north. Still, obviously, the ocean's there, but it was a little change of direction. Same day, same morning. And I love wide angle shots. I got it. I love those. So, you know, of course, he's got a big old face. We're going to do that. And then you can see I didn't get the light right because he's got a shadow heading back towards the ocean, but it's soft enough that it's not too bad. His shadow should be coming towards me, but he was super low. He had like, his legs were like that long. And then we try to do blue skies. That's headed toward the south. We had really pretty clouds that day, so that worked. That's my grand dog, Piper. Yeah, she's very sweet. Try to do relationship photos. One of the most popular at sunrise is, my owners love the silhouettes, because they're in it, but they're not. Especially the people that are a little bit shy about having their faces in it, or maybe have a little bit of a body anxiety or whatever, but they love this. And I love it because it does capture, they know that's their dog, we know that's their dog, and it just captures that moment for them. Another one. Sometimes that works really well for our action shots too. Sunrise. But actually that Doberman passed like 3 weeks after that, from bone cancer. They didn't know it at the time. They didn't know she was ill. So our park sessions, which we kind of relabeled them woodland sessions, I love those because you have the beauty of you're not in a rush. The sky's not changing, the light's not changing, the tide's not changing. You know, it's so much easier. But, you know, it's not for everyone. I mean, I love the beaches. So, yeah, there's our little guys, 2 little corgis. They did love each other just like that. We still try to go in the morning early because we don't want a whole lot of people walking. We don't want to be in their way. We do pay the park fees in advance. I always recommend people, even if you think you can get away with shooting there and not getting caught, don't do it. Go ahead and pay it. You know, same with if you're having, like when we shoot in St. Augustine, we've got to fill out a form and put the dates down, and it's not a big fee, but, you know, we have to pay it. Arboretum, same thing, it's a $60 fee per session. So, but we do it. We actually shoot for the Arboretum, we are their photographers, so I get the beauty of being able to go anytime I want with any clients I want all year round and be able to shoot there. But I still need to tell them when I'm going to be there so that I'm on their schedule. Anyhow, again, it's like anything, you expose to the background, and then I just let my strobe give a little fill of light. Now, can you shoot it without any light? Yeah. Can you use just natural light? Yeah. But I just like a little bit of light on it. I don't want to have to go back in Photoshop and do all that work to lift my shadows and make sure that the eyes are brightened and that kind of thing. I want it to be just right in camera as best as I can. And I just love this look. So, yeah. Okay. She's cute because she knows I keep going. We'll go through, so we'll kind of go through these. A lot of wide angle stuff. Try to always get head portraits. Go to the next one. Again. And always looking for bokeh, looking for things in the background. Oh, that's a key. Try to position the dog so one leg blocks their private areas. Try to get some action. The owner is actually walking next to them, but we try to always do something like that. And go through these a little faster, I guess. Places of interest, it's the same as shooting people, but just a little bit different. You got a much smaller client, unless you're shooting really tiny children. Really tiny children. Because that's it, you're lucky. Go ahead. Puppy, put them up on something. You know, you got a split second before they decide they're going to jump off. Look for fallen tree limbs. And we'll go through this fairly quickly. I'll go ahead and put the next. Here's the keys for sunset. We kind of talked about it. Same types of things. You go to the next one. And that was a cloudless sunset, but we still got that beautiful gold color. Okay. You saw that little guy before. And you're always looking for things, just like people. And then I think we'll just go through a couple tips on these multiples. For multiples, my rule is always to have a handler per dog. They don't always follow that, but we are pretty much now insist on it. If they show up, like we had one woman show up with 3 dachshunds and herself, now today we would say, hey, let's just reschedule this. Because you have to have handlers for the dog, and those particular dachshunds, they were focused on her, so she needed to be behind me. So you can do things, you can tether them. Sometimes like for a bridge, you can actually tie the leashes to a bridge. Or, those screws that you put in the sand or in the dirt, you can put that behind them and put their leashes. And sometimes that will help to keep them together because you've got to have them on the same plane. And you have to prepare to composite because it's kind of like a family with kids. Everybody's looking great and the one kid's, or with the adults, if they're with the dogs, are looking down at the dog. So just be prepared, and if that means that you need to have a small tripod out there when you're shooting multiples, bring a tripod, put your camera up, set it, and then you can pop it off and nothing has moved except the dogs. Those Sheilas, they're so sweet. When they finally looked at me. Those guys were easy. They like sounds. They were not a problem. Those guys were a problem. But that is them. We manage. It's like at the very end. And yeah, the one has the horizon going through his head. That's a huge no-no. But you know what? The owner loved it, and I was so exhausted we took that shot. And you know those guys. Two whippets, they were actually pretty good. The puppy was wild, but I had two owners. You don't see them, but they're one on either side. Same with those guys. Owners were on either side. Because nobody knows a sit stay. Like the owner says, we talk about what kind of commands do they know? Oh, they know their sit, they know their down, they know their stand, they know their recall, they stay. Okay, and have you proofed them anywhere? Well, no, we do it in the kitchen. In dog language, proofing means that you've taken these skills that you've taught them in the quiet and calm of your kitchen, and you've taken them to a new place that they haven't ever been before, and they're losing their freaking minds, and then you work with them and reteach them the sit, the down, the stand, the stay, because it's a new location. And that's what they call proofing. Nobody ever proofs their dogs. So that means when you go on location and the dogs haven't been there and haven't done a sit, down, stay, they're excited and they're losing their minds, and it's just going to take longer. So it's the owners who tell me, well, they mostly do it, that I know I'm going to have a fantastic session because they're being honest, and then their dogs are usually like absolutely perfect. So these guys were cute. They were good, except the Frenchie, it was hot, so that's down in Naples, I feel like all the time. Dog in the middle was terrified of flash, so I knew that we would only have one image when we had them all together, so I shot like 3 or 4 without the flash, knowing that when I finally saw it in camera and I ticked it on and prayed that my pro photo was going to nail it, and it did, and we got it. I think we'll just roll through these with the family. We've pretty much talked about all this. The big thing that people do is they're worried about what their dog is doing, and so you get the perfect expression on the dog, and the owner's looking down at them. So I tell the owners, you just look at me, never break focus with me, just smile. Don't worry about what your dog is doing, that's what we're going to worry about. And so we'll do all kinds of things to get the dog to look in, then it works. We do a lot of these in between the legs. We try to work with where they hold the leash, because like this guy, we couldn't remove the leash because then it looked like he had a claw hand on the side. So, you know, the leash stays in. We try to get them to put the leash behind them, and then the leash hand goes in a pocket, and then it can make it look like the dog doesn't have a leash on. It doesn't always work. That's a very sweet bloodhound. We do silhouettes. And we saw that silhouette before. Same shoot, just a different time. Yeah, that's not bad. That's their big old building. The silhouettes are really fun too. They're really fun too. That was his last time out. That was a farewell session that we had. It's like people, you just try to show the connection. Yeah, I should have had those pilings a little farther to the right, but that moment happened, and I still like that shot. Post-processing, this is very quick. This is just like 2 slides. I bring my images in through Nikon Transfer because I had someone from Data Color tell me, one of the big color people, that you get the most color and information and everything if you bring it in, your raw files in through your camera's native raw processor. So I listen, and I feel like I can tell the difference, but you know, it could be just me trying to feel good about things. I shoot with 2 cards, they're both raw. One's strictly for backup. Um, Lightroom Classic, used to always create a color profile. Again, I think things are coming in so great. I really haven't had to worry about it much. But I do use, you're aware of with the color profiles, I do not use Adobe Color. I use Camera and one of those, Camera Landscape. Usually Camera Standard is where I start because it's created for your camera. And all the weird, funky colors that I used to have to use a color profile for, I don't get anymore. It works very, very well. I just do slight corrections, and I batch them. And I make sure that all my selected images pretty much look all the same going into when I take them into Photoshop, and that's when I remove the leashes and others. And I think there's one more slide, but I think, one more slide! That's it. So the only thing is, if generative AI doesn't get it, I go old school. I go back and do all the things we did before we had generative fill. And then I might pull generative fill, loop that area, just to see if it'll clean it up a little bit more once it has the information. So, any questions before I head to the emergency room? So that's our information. If you want to contact me, if you have questions, because I realize I am kind of bugging out of here on you guys, please feel free to contact me. Just tell me that you are in this meeting and you have a question, and or you have an issue, or you can even send me a photo and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I've got an issue with processing this, or what could I have done to avoid this? And I'm more than happy to help you out. So, thanks.
Now can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, that was so awesome. I see a bunch of people are getting up. Y'all, we got to keep the meeting rolling. So if you've got questions for Joan, we're going to let her get to the Dr. Randy. You're going to have to grab her and take her to the doctor. And but we're going to keep the meeting rolling. If anybody needs to take a break, you can run out and take a break. Okay, and Scott's getting me going on the meeting. All right, so Happy New Year, everybody. And Anita, you're waiting there. Okay, it's super, super quick. About JCC. Okay, but can we do that later? Because we're running behind. Okay, so what I'm going to do, everybody, we're getting started here again. So Happy New Year, Scott. You're rolling me, or do I have a clicker? Up, down arrow. Oh, okay. Anyway, what I wanted to say here is, can we go back up to the other one a minute ago? I wanted to say, y'all, that I'm so excited that I am the new president. I think everybody knows that. I'm Liz Pierce. I don't even think I said my name. And I am 100% following in Max's shoes, and they just had to leave because they're picking somebody up at the airport. But I wanted to show this list up here, and this is our current guidance committee. Am I still doing the? Y'all hear me? Y'all can hear me, right? Back. Okay. So this is our current guidance committee. So we are lucky. I want to say this, and I didn't mean to cut Anita off, but I think you'll agree this is a hefty guidance committee, right? We have 20 people. And St. Augustine doesn't have this, Flagler doesn't have this, so your club is strong. And that's one thing I wanted to show you. The other thing is that if you thought, maybe I want to do a little something to help the club, but I don't really want to spend a lot of time doing it, this is the place to get involved. Just if there's something in here that you're interested, maybe you like outings, maybe you like working with speakers, maybe you're a social bug, you want to help Helen with social, then let us know and just kind of do that. And guess what? It will make you love this club more. I tell you, it is true. Just do a little something. And we're talking about a little because we're strong. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to try to catch up because we're behind. Isn't that funny? I love this. Joan was great, I think. So I'm a fast talker, so we're going to be great. So we had the slideshow before the meeting. I wanted to say one thing on that is for those that are putting their photos in, if you can figure out how to put a watermark on there, then we all can go, man, did you see so-and-so's photo? So if you can figure that out, or if you need help, holler to some of us that know how to do it. We can help you do that, okay? Wait, actually go back if you will. So we've got, we're going to do the tech talk next. So Mike, you're going to be after me, okay? So you're actually going to be our ending thing, but not yet, not yet. So you don't need to go anywhere. And then we had Joan, which is great. So we'll keep you rolling. Okay. We didn't actually need to come up here with you already. Have a speaker. Okay, so we have the meeting after the meeting is going to be thank you, Betsy, for getting us lined up at the fish company. So how many people want to go to the meeting after the meeting at the fish company? Hands up, and Betsy's going to count them. Hold your hand up if you're going to go. Betsy, you got this? Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, next. Okay, one thing we want to do here is it's time for membership renewals, and a bunch of people have been reaching out thinking that you needed to get them in by the end of the year because that's how we used to do it. And guess what? Is we changed it. And we made it be so that it's now going to be March, at the end of March. And so you can pay from any time, what's that, beginning of March. Okay, we'll pay from now to the beginning of March. And we sent out an email, Scott sent it out, where it has a link on there that you can click to pay, you know, with the Wild Apricot app. The other thing I wanted to, actually you can click to pay whether you have the app or online, right? Okay. And there's a link in the email. The other thing is if you don't have the Wild Apricot app yet, you want it. Get it on your phone, and I'll tell you why. A couple reasons. One is it makes life easy to pay the dues, but here's the one you're going to love the most, and Nancy, you'll validate this with me. If you want to go to these outings that are limited, like they have a limited number of spots in the outing, if you get the email and you flip around with your app and go, yes, I want to go to that, you'll get in. The way we've been going is some of these things have limited spots, and the people, if you say, well, you might say on Facebook that you want to go. If you don't have the app, you probably won't make the cut. So you want the app. Okay, it's a free app, and then just log yourself in. And that's what it looks like. That's why I gave you that logo there. Okay, I'm paying dues if you don't like apps and you don't like online. Then you can pay Jamie, but you have to get a hold of Jamie Woodward, our treasurer, and she'll give you the address. Okay, next. No, I messed up on that. Oh, okay, wanted to also say, we have 252 members. That's huge, 252 members. In fact, 4 new people. Are any of these folks in the room here? We've got John Martin, Devin Morris, Rick, I'm saying, Devin, he's rejoined. He rejoined. And then Renee Sanderson, anybody, Renee here? No? Okay. So welcome, Devin, welcome. One of these days we'll get you to stand up and say what you're doing, like what you want to shoot these days. If that's it. Not today because we're rolling. All right, next slide. Okay, upcoming outings. Sally's. It used to be, what did it used to be called? Thank you, Sally Corp. It's now called Sally's Dark Rides. And Ed is our host. Is Ed here? No. Okay. Ed's going to host it for us. And the deal is that it's going to be on Thursday, this Thursday, and you got to be there at 12:45. It is free. My eyes are so bad. This is when you switch to other glasses. Wait. So it's free. And he recommends that you have a wide angle lens. Okay? After that, then we also have, to capitalize on what we learned from Joan today, we're going to be at Paws Park. Paws Park, for those who don't know, is in Jack's Beach, and it's a dog park where a lot of people bring their dogs. My husband goes there all the time. He loves it. So we're going to meet there. take some pictures of dogs, and we're going to run over and have some dinner or something over at RP's restaurant. Okay. The same night, if you're a car nut, let's say you don't like dogs, you like cars, the Flagler Club, the Flagler Camera Club, is having a classic car thing, and you can drive all the way down to St. Augustine. Okay. And then next page, we also have an upcoming Get to Know Your Camera class taught by Roseanne D. Tomaso. It's on January 25th. And then there's that Cumberland Island. People have been wanting to go on the Cumberland Island trip. We have 24 people that booked. And again, if you had to ask, you could have booked faster. Anita, where'd you go? You want to talk about this, the JCC thing? Okay, appreciate it.
Everybody, sorry I came in late. JCC, our first presenter guest speaker on January 16th is going to be Bob Self. I know he presented here, but anyone's welcome to come to our meeting in case you didn't get to see him or you want to see him again. We start our meetings at 7 o'clock at the Good Shepherd Church in Southside.
Okay. And what do we have next? I think that might be it for me, Scott. Oh no, where'd you go, Dave? We're gonna need you in a second here. Wait, actually the next slide. Okay, February meeting is Helen. Helen's doing still lifes, and they're gorgeous. We want to learn from her. March meeting is Chris, and I'm going to mispronounce his name. If anybody is drawn, I think is how his name is, Making Better Prints. April meeting is our only Zoom-only meeting of the year. And the reason we're doing Zoom is because April, the tax people are in here, and it's a problem. So that one's going to be cool, though, because it's this guy that does drone photography, and he's been doing it for a very long time. He's going to teach us, and we're going to all learn. Okay, next. Okay, Dave, come on up. So here, you want to handle all of both slides, right? You can see them from here.
Our photo camera club competitions. There'll be 3 digital competitions again this year, with a 4th competition that basically is a rerun of the ribbon winners for the first 3 contests. That'll be on they haven't announced the dates yet for the digital. We have in the past had print competitions that have gone away because of the inability to get support for people to man it during the year. There's a lot of work involved in it, and the interest in supporting that has fallen away. But for this year, in conjunction with the conference that's listed up there has been a print contest announced with submissions entered from the 10th of February to the 10th of March. If you've not done this before, first of all, for you members, you are automatically a member of the Florida Camera Club Council, and you can submit images for the contest as a member of the BPC Camera Club. All you have to do is apply for a membership. There's no cost. And we will verify that you are members here, and you're free to enter the digital contest, and in this case, the print contest, if you do print. So this contest they're going to accept the submissions for from the 10th of October, 10th of February to the 10th of March. Finished prints will be due to us for submission by the 17th of March. Judging will take place on that weekend, March 28th to 30th, with the ribbon awarded images being exhibited at the conference that weekend. And you can go online to the F3C website and look at what's involved. This is a full weekend of photography. It's in Bradenton, Florida this year. And we've had members that have gone to it in years gone by. I've never attended that yet. May attend that this year. But more to the point on the contest, historically, the F3C has run 5 categories. They've run 5 categories. There's been an addition made to the 5 categories. There will be 6 categories from now on. They've added animals as a 6th competition. And what they have done is eliminated animals from color competition. We're in Florida, there's a lot of birds, there's a lot of flowers. A lot of the color competition, if you look at the entries, a significant portion of the color images are birds or other animals native to the state. So any color image that the primary subject or the subject of the image is an animal, it will automatically go into the animal category. And that's effective with the spring competition that they're talking about and with all the digital competitions going forward from there. The only other change is the people category. The change was made there that in the past there's been a definition that people categories is focused on an individual, one person subject. That's been opened up. This is a people category as long as the subjects in the image are people. The person sitting on a horse is not a people category. But if the image is multiple people and the focus is there, there's no overlying anything else interfering with the image, they'll be considered in the people category also. So that is basically it. I don't have the information. This information on the print contest will be published on the website shortly, and it'll also put it into Facebook, in the Facebook category. That's basically it. No, it's people. The main subject must be a person who knows. The people category is people. The people category is the people category. Now, that person, the prime subject person, could go into an interpretive category. It could go into a creative category also. But if it's a straight subject shot, it's going to win the people category. And again, I'll put this on the website and throw it onto Facebook. And I will put it on Facebook. Any questions?
I think that gets us to Mike. Oh, yeah, thank you, Nick. That is it. Okay, so Kim asked us to post this. This is kind of fun. So we're doing we get one exhibition a year. And, we exhibit it out here out in the library. We're going to do it again. And the dates are going to be the exhibit will run from April 28th through May 31st. And the thing is, we're going to just have it be no theme. Any picture you like. So as you're working on your photos, from now, it has to be, the one thing that she did say is it does have to be in the last year. You have to have taken it in the last year. But it can be anything you like. So there's no theme. And that's kind of nice. Because you might have, whatever you like to take pictures of, you can have it in there. Just, you want to be thinking about that between now and March 29th, which is the deadline for submission. You'll get more information on it. But as you're taking photos, it's, it can be anything. Now it's Mike. Yay, Mike. Okay. Mike is going to do our TED Talk. So, Mike, you can come on up here and
Is Mike talking? We don't hear him.
Not right now, Bob. Hang on. Can you guys see this on Zoom?
We can see the slide.
You can. Okay, good. Then just hit